Hey everyone, this is Cortland Dahl with Healthy Minds Innovations and the Healthy Minds program. Thanks for hanging on there for a moment. I actually just had little technical difficulties. It wasn't loading, so hopefully you can all see me and hear me now. So this is one of the first live practices that we've done. I did one last week. We had another one with Jay earlier in the week, and this is still a little experimental for us. So thanks for helping us figure all this out. So as I said, my name is Cortland Dahl. I'm a scientist at the Center for Healthy Minds at UW-Madison and the Chief Contemplative Officer for Healthy Minds Innovations. And the work we do in the world is really all about translating science into tools that we can use to bolster our own well-being. And these days, of course, we need these tools more than ever. This is an incredibly challenging time. I think every one of us is struggling with this current pandemic in different ways. And this is exactly why we learn practices like meditation and other ways that we can train ourselves to be resilient in times of stress and hardship. So today we'll do a little bit of practice. I thought we could start with some mindfulness practice and perhaps do a little appreciation practice and end with a few tips on how we actually can practice these same skills in everyday life. So I already see that a few of you are checking in here. There's somebody, looks like Brian, all the way in Jakarta in Indonesia. Hello to those of you in Malaysia, Boston, all over the place. So it's great to see already. We have a bunch of you from different places in the world. So I thought maybe we could start just by checking in before we even do this practice. How are you feeling these days? What's going on with you? If you could capture that in maybe one or two words, and you can put this in the chat box. How has this whole global crisis got you feeling? If you had to capture that, how are you actually feeling these days? I can say from my own end, it can just feel a little overwhelming at times. So in any case, what I've noticed myself in moments that are really challenging, or periods of life as we have right now, where the entire period that we are in is difficult to navigate, is that the mind tends to get really tight. We get pulled up in our thoughts. We get caught up in our emotional reactions. And when we're caught up in our thoughts and we're caught up in our emotions, it's almost as though our sense of self, our whole mind just gets really tight. The other thing that I noticed oftentimes happens in times like this is that we get overly focused on the negative. And in some ways, our biology actually predisposes us to getting really focused on the negative. We're actually primed to notice threats in our environment. This is what has helped us survive as a species. But because of that, we oftentimes get really focused, overly focused at times on the negative. So right now, I can see that, that some of you chiming in here, Brian, you kind of mentioned this feeling of groundlessness. Kelly, you mentioned being able to let go. These are all these different qualities. On the one hand, we just don't know what's going to happen next. And as you said, Brian, we can just feel so groundless in that space. And in some cases, we have no choice but to let go and trust that things are going to be okay, but we don't really know what's going to happen. So I appreciate your comments. You're already chiming in here. So what the science shows and the research we do at the Center for Healthy Minds indicates is that we can actually train our minds so that when the mind does get tight, when we get pulled into our thoughts, when we get pulled into our emotions, we can actually train ourselves to loosen that. We can train ourselves to expand rather than getting tight. And similarly, when our mind gets overly focused on the negative, when we start seeing everything as a threat, we actually can train our mind to shift. We can train our minds to recognize the positive. And in many ways, this is a skill. This is something we can learn, something we can practice in everyday life. And these days, this last skill of noticing the positive, which is another way of simply saying learning to appreciate what we're doing, who we're with, and even to appreciate ourselves, it's incredibly important because we are all barraged with so much information these days that is putting us on edge. It makes us feel like everything is a threat. Every person, every situation, even our family, if somebody leaves the house and comes back, we might even be perceiving them as a threat to our health or our well-being. So all of this, the news, the information, it just gets us totally caught up in this loop of negativity. So why don't we actually take a few moments now, and I'll treat this a little bit like an experiment, and hopefully you can chime in with what you experience on the chat here about some simple ways that we can shift this momentum of the mind. So take a moment now to settle in, find a comfortable posture. I'm going to do that myself. This moment of connecting with your posture is quite important. You want to find a posture that feels comfortable, where you are upright and also, perhaps most importantly, relaxed. And now notice how your body feels right now. You can close your eyes if you like, or keep them open. It doesn't really matter. Notice if you're holding any stress in your body, any tension. And notice what that feels like. You can take a few slow, deep breaths. And as you breathe, see if you can let that tension relax. And notice the sensations in your body. Continue to scan through your body from top to bottom with your awareness. And all you have to do is simply notice what you feel. You don't need to change anything. You might notice pleasant sensations or unpleasant sensations, perhaps even pain or discomfort. All of that is fine. Just notice whatever sensations are present in your body right now. Take note of what you're feeling. Make a mental note. Do you feel nothing at all in certain areas? Do you feel tension? Do you feel relaxation? Whatever you're feeling is fine. Simply notice what's going on. Now let's pause for a moment. And if any of you want to share what you noticed in the chat, you might just say, I noticed tension in my shoulders. Actually, that's what I noticed. I kind of felt a little tension in my shoulders, and I could feel that relaxing a little bit. So feel free to chime in and put something in the chat if you, whatever you might have noticed in your body right now. All we're doing here is simply taking stock of what's going on. So Jenny just mentioned a tight forehead. So it's interesting. We all hold tension in different areas of our body, and oftentimes we don't even notice it. And we don't often take the time to bring some curiosity, some open, accepting awareness to what's happening. So we can see here, Yumten Rinchen says there's pain in the back. Liz mentioned tightness in the jaws and shoulders. So just noticing all this is so important. We have so little space in our lives to tune into our own bodies, to give ourselves the space to let go and relax. So let's keep going with this. Let's shift gears and try a slightly different awareness practice. So again, take a moment to settle in. Close your eyes if you like. And this time, let's use a different support or different object for mindful awareness. Notice whatever sounds are present in your environment. Or if it's perfectly silent, you can simply notice the silence. Now let your attention settle on one sound. And use that as an anchor. Just let it keep you tethered to this present moment. Keep your awareness very lightly oriented to whatever this sound might be for the next few moments. And your mind will likely get pulled into thoughts. You might get distracted at times. That is totally normal. There's nothing wrong with that at all. When you notice your mind has been distracted, that is a really important moment. When you notice that, gently bring your awareness back to this moment. In this case, back to whatever sounds you're hearing right now. Okay, and now let go of the sound and just sit for a few moments. Just be. Drop all the doing. It's nothing to improve, nothing to change, no special state of mind you need to be having right now. Simply allow yourself to be. Great. Now let's inject a little appreciation into this moment. Take a moment now to bring someone to mind that you have a warm, caring relationship with. Doesn't really matter who it is, just whoever comes to mind is fine. And now reflect on what you really appreciate about this person. Could be some quality they have, could be a skill, could be anything. So take a moment to find something that you appreciate or admire about them. Now you might even imagine sharing or expressing your appreciation in some way. What would you say or do to let them know that you appreciate them? So now you can actually imagine expressing your appreciation. Imagine saying something to them or doing something. Just take a moment to imagine that. Envision what that would actually be like. Imagine how they would feel to be appreciated, to know that they are appreciated. How would that feel for them? And how does it feel to you to be the one who is appreciating and showing that appreciation? And now shift to the opposite view, not the negative view, but rather than expressing appreciation, imagine that they are the one appreciating you. What would this person say or recognize? What quality or skill might they find that they appreciate about you? Take a moment to see if you can imagine what they might say or do to express that appreciation to you. Notice how it feels even to imagine being appreciated, being seen for some positive qualities you have. Okay, now you can let go of this appreciation exercise, and again, simply be present. Rest your mind naturally. You don't have to do anything. You don't even have to meditate. Just be. And you can slowly open your eyes if they were closed. And I'm curious if some of you might want to share something. When you did this appreciation exercise, what did you notice? Who did you think about? What qualities did you notice? If any of you want to share a little bit about the person you thought of or something that came up in that practice. Again, the idea here is that this is a very, very simple skill. In fact, we practiced a few important skills here. And in many ways, it completely can shift the way we relate to these challenging situations, like everything that's going on now with the coronavirus. We get caught up in our heads. We're taking in all this information, and it gets our mind spinning and gets our emotions going. And here we can bring ourselves back. So instead of our mind becoming narrow, we bring ourselves back to this moment. And when we do that, we are essentially expanding the scope of our awareness. Rather than getting tight and narrow, we are widening the aperture of our own mind. We're taking in more of what's happening in this moment. We are in touch with our body. Rather than being caught up in our thoughts, we can observe our thoughts. We simply know what's happening in our mind. So this is really a way to shift out of that mode of being really tight, really narrow, where we're just dominated by whatever our thoughts are telling us. The other thing that we just did with this practice of appreciation, and again, I'm really curious if some of you are bold enough and want to share something in the chat here. I'd be curious what you noticed in that short exercise. But it's simply the skill of noticing something positive. And when we listen to the news or we're thinking about what's going on, oftentimes we immediately go to the negative. We immediately start ruminating oftentimes about all the bad things that can happen, all the threats, all the challenges. So this is just reorienting. It's not positive thinking in the sense of wishing something better would happen. It's a positive outlook. We're not wanting something better to happen in the future. We're noticing the positive things that are happening right now. So it's not just positive thinking or wishful thinking. So again, this is just a simple skill. You can do this anytime, anywhere, no matter who you're with, no matter what you're doing. So if you want to boil this down to two really, really simple skills that you can practice in everyday life, the first is simply to pause and bring awareness to something that's happening in your present moment experience. And it can be whatever resonates with you. For some people, being anchored in the breath really helps. For some people, sound is much easier to connect with. For some people, it's sensations in the body. It really doesn't matter. You can find whatever object helps you stay grounded in awareness. And then throughout your day, you could do it as a formal meditation practice as we just did, but throughout your day, you just notice whatever that experience is. You come back to your breath. You come back to your body. You come back to sound, whatever helps you stay fully grounded in the present moment. The second skill is simply to notice one positive thing, one pleasant thing about every person you see, about every situation you're in. Just notice something nice. And again, it doesn't have to be a big deal. It might just be noticing a color that you like. It might be noticing that somebody smiles at you. It's simply attuning to the positive. And this is remarkably powerful. It's remarkably powerful, and it completely shifts the trajectory of relationships when you just take that moment to appreciate someone, to notice something nice about them. And immediately there's a felt sense of connection there. And then whatever you talk about, whatever you do, it's just built. You have this foundation of a warm, caring connection with that person. So these are very simple skills. Play around with them in your everyday life. They've made a huge difference in my life, and especially in these challenging times where we are right now. It's so easy to get caught up in all the negativity. And this stuff it makes us stronger. It makes us more resilient. It makes us more rooted in the caring connections we have with other people. And all of that is exactly what we need to get through challenging times like this. So I think we'll wrap it up there. Thank you for your kind comments here. I hope you appreciated this. If you found any of this helpful, you might want to check out our Healthy Minds program app, which has many, many more practices like this one and a whole program that'll take you step by step through this. So that's available on any of the app stores. And also just to say that we're going to be doing sessions like this for a while. Daniela Labra is going to be leading a session on Monday, this upcoming Monday. And Daniela, for those of you who don't know her, is an incredibly gifted meditation teacher and one of the warmest, most wonderful people you'll likely to meet. So definitely would recommend tuning back in on Monday. And just want to end on a note of gratitude. A lot of these resources and tools we're creating for the world are freely offered, but it's taken a tremendous amount to create them and to make them available and to make them freely offered like this session is. And we couldn't do that without the generosity of so many of you out there who are supporting our nonprofit through your donations and in many other ways. And more than anything else, thank you so much just for taking time for this in your life. The world needs awareness and mindfulness. The world needs appreciation and compassion right now. So thank you for being an ambassador for all of this work and helping us get these messages out into the world. So hope you have a wonderful weekend, and hopefully we'll see you back here soon. Take care.